violence, Reverend Dr. Travis Grant, East Chicago, Indiana. Alicia Jackson. Let me stress my thanks to the media for coming out here today. The crisis of emergency police federal intervention, Chicago federal intervention. Citizens in county states overwhelmed, stopping drugs at the borders, but more getting in and getting in and being locked out. Those are going in, guns are going in, and standing ground laws will not stop it. Open carry will not stop it. There must be cease the flow of guns, drugs. Last week in Iran and Ukraine, the siege of the east by Russia, 8 people killed, 12 people killed. And this is a war zone. In this violence, business cannot grow. Adults are prisoners in their own home. Children that play, we deserve more security than this. Now, we need to have Chairman Durbin has secretary when convene hearings in Chicago as a place. It's not the only place. Then for the same as all these high crime in these cities. It's unnatural. It's a social phenomenon. We cannot accept it any longer. 157 people killed in Chicago. Woman killed this one 10:30, 158 and killed now. And it's 100+ inches. We need help. I want to call the police to address this issue. So you can hear me and to make this appeal. It's so unnatural about this. We know where those guns are coming from Indiana and Kentucky. We know that when you shut gun shop, and we just stand and let them come in.
Thank you, Reverend Jackson. First, I want to just agree with your call for federal intervention on a couple of issues in that. First of all, with the gun issue, we heard for years we couldn't get anything through the Congress and the government because of Republican control. There's Democratic control now. We have a Democratic administration. We need the Democrats to move on gun legislation in this country. As well as we've sent well over $1 billion to help out Ukraine, and we should. But it's a both and. What are we doing to help out in Chicago? Help out in other major cities with this violence issue. There's been 158 killed and 679 wounded in Chicago since January 1st. The CDC said out last week that the #1 cause of youth death in America is guns. The #1 cause of youth death. Past weekend, we saw a warm weather taste of summer, but we also got a taste of what summer might be in violence. And we got to take note of that. I hope it's a wake-up call. I hope it's a wake-up call for all of us. What's our plan? What's our preventive strategy? What's our alternatives for our youth? What actions are we going to take and put in place now? Not in July, not in August, not talking about the numbers. Yes, we need to have a plan from the city, the county, the state, the federal. What's their plan to help with these numbers? But I also have to ask Chicago, what are we going to do? In every home, what are we going to do about watching our children, caring for our children, where our children are at, those who are in curfew to be in home in time. And our blocks, we've got to reconnect, phone trees, meetings, turning lights on, whatever we're going to do in our block. Every block ought to have a plan for its block, looking out for one another. We need to have a neighborhood that looks out after each other again. What the neighborhood, the area is going to do, there should be meetings with police districts and churches and businesses and citizens in every police district to see what can we do. Churches, synagogues, and mosques, what's your plan? Besides holding services, what are you going to do in your community to make sure that people are safe and our youth have alternatives? When there is a storm coming, and all the news stations, your weather people come out and tell us, get prepared. There's a hurricane camp. This is what you should do. This is where you should go. Well, there's a storm coming towards Chicago this summer. What are we going to do? What's our plans? How are we going to be preventive instead of talking about the bodies in our streets. If we do not have a plan in our homes, our blocks, our neighborhoods, the cities, the state, the government, the law enforcement, churches, synagogues, mosques, if we don't have a plan, then we are co-conspirators to the violence. All of us have a part in this, all of us, and we've got to come up with something now.
Thinking about the you know, when you're looking at the situation, Chicago is an example of the national urban crisis. Focus on fellow stopping drugs at the borders. We're getting in and being stopped. Drugs, guns, that's a deadly combination. Now we have political assassinations on Jewish people, on Asian people, on black people. People targeting Jews again as they did in World War II. Anti-Semitism is on the rise. You of course, that's trying to feed together to that. Asian woman pushing from a train in New York City. We must end the violence at its core. So the jury's in a good position. The media hearings, and this time the mayor, county exec, and the governor, all Democrats, have a reason to come together before the plan. Thank you, ma'am.
This is a deja vu moment. Over 30 years ago, when I was alderman of the 16th Ward, my first public media was a picture of me on the front page of the New York Times, representing the Inglewood community, and it said murder capital of the world. And here we are 30 years later. I am grateful to Reverend Jackson and all of those that have been in the struggle those 30 years. What has been improved? What has changed 30 years later? We're now talking about the same thing. I appeal to the churches in the city of Chicago. Open your doors. Right. Allow young people to have a safe haven in your halls, in your sanctuaries. I appeal to the faith-based community that we must get out of the pulpit and go into the public. I appeal to each and every man and woman of God that faith is one thing, but to be able to bring it to action is another. And so we can't expect politicians, we can't expect anyone else to do something that we can't do as faith-based. Again, Reverend Jackson, Father Flager, to my colleague, let us continue to not only pray, but when we pray and off of our knees, faith-based community, let's get the job done. Because we preach one thing, let us teach and be the example that needs to happen. God bless you.
Well, for Q&A, I want to say again that the federal government is really an intervention in Chicago, in Memphis, in St. Louis. We work around the country. And the flow of guns and drugs and first was rolling is a deadly combination. If you're on the records, they don't end up doing working on the bodies of the babies. We deserve better. Next question.
Bishop Graham?
Ma'am?
Bishop Graham?
Reverend Jackson has called these leaders together today, along with Father Flager and business leaders, to address this pandemic, this epidemic of violence, not just here in Chicago, but around the country, where we're looking at these horrific numbers, whether there's CTA violence, whether there's drive-bys, whether there's shootings on our highways. We can do better. And as Father Flager and Reverend Jackson has articulated, there's a storm coming to our city and cities all across America, where this urban violence is being driven by poverty, being driven by unemployment, it's been driven by a sense of hopelessness. And we can do better in a collective, collaborative manner. We're really looking at means of empowering communities, pulling pastors and parents and principal and law enforcement and the private sector together in a comprehensive manner of addressing this violence, but we cannot do it without federal intervention. This past week, the president showed a great deal of moral fortitude in raising an issue on ghost guns. We know the proliferation of guns that come across the Indiana state border. We don't have gun shops in Chicago. We don't have gun provocateurs in Cook County. They come across the state line and they're proliferated through all of our neighborhoods. We intend to identify more of those. There's a gun shop in the city of Gary, Indiana, that is known for the highest number of illegal guns coming into Cook County and into southern Illinois. And so our time has come to not fight each other, but fight for the lives of our children, our seniors, and those who are at risk.
One of the mistakes we made, we tried to color justice. I went to kids that Simeon, 4 people, 2 were shot, killed, a few months ago. And they said this black kid, you know, had a gun in the car. Locked up, you tell it. Snitching, straight short. White kid, I tell it. Blacks or whites is jail time. Whites or blacks, riot time. Blacks or blacks, military. We were justice's crisis. We must not justice situation. I think the FBI should be involved. Every home does the right thing. One of the streets of Park gets shot last night in Charleston, South Carolina. Little league game. Kids are innocent. Shots were not rang out. It's not fair.
I speak on behalf of the education community. I bring sentiments from Kennedy King College on behalf of Dr. Gregory Thomas, our president. We're saying there's a crisis, and that crisis requires a response. And so in saying that, as an education community, we need to make sure that our community is aware of what we have to offer and what's available to our youth. The largest percentage of individuals not in school, not working, is between 16 and 24. That's the youth population that we need to engage in educational opportunities. And as you know, Bishop Coleman said, preachers need to come out of the pulpit into the public. We need our educators out of the classroom and the corridors into the community. And so therefore, we need to be engaged as well. We are opening our doors as partners in this work. We have the educational pillar in this community, but I call on my educational partners across the city to do the same. We all need to lock arms and be committed to ensuring that our youth have an option. And when we say dream bigger and do greater, we can't say that and then we let their dreams get cut. We let their dreams get squashed by the possibility of gunfire. I also speak as a mother of a 16-year-old boy, young man in this community, in this city. And I worry every day, despite all the dreams he has, that it could be cut at any moment because we're not responding to the crisis that exists. So we need to step up across the board. It's not just one entity that has a responsibility. We all have a responsibility to do more so that we can support what it really means to have an engaged youth and give them the opportunities that are expected. Thank you.
Ms. Callahan, building babies.
As a business owner here in this community for over 35 years, I speak for other funeral home owners. It's not a joy for us to have our hearse wheels rolling with our children in the back. We many times have provided services for people like the Tasarita Powells or Hadil Pendletons of the world who had great futures ahead of them. We don't look in favor of those kinds of things. The fact is, we were at an elementary school this morning simply because we're here to make a difference. We're here to connect to the educators and business owners in the community because our intention is not to be just in the neighbor in the hood, but be part of the neighborhood. Many of us have taken neighbor out of neighborhood.
Right.
And therefore, we don't make a difference in the community. My wife and I we're constantly reaching out not only to the police department, but the business owners and educators so that we may be able to make a difference in young people's lives.
For some reason, political, white on white crime in Russia, Ukraine. And Putin turned off all the media. The people, Zelensky, the Jew, is creating this. Anti-Semitism is emerging in Europe as it has not since World War II. Asian bashing. No regard for the Chinese Exclusion Act, how the Japanese people were interned in camps in World War II. So this is a big issue. It is our community, but it's much more than that. We think that the media must help tell the story. But I think that parents have some responsibility. Early on, the Bishop Holman, there was a channel between the mayor and the school teachers. We got involved in the situation. Well, as you know, 100,000 kids were vaccinated. 250,000 unvaccinated. The same parents are not registered to vote either. It's a shame in Chicago, easy access to vaccination, you don't have it. So that is a problem. Questions?
Reverend Jackson and Father Flager as well, this question is for you too. I just came from a press conference downtown in River North. The Cook County Sheriff's Department is partnering with CPD. They're opening up a second command post. This will be downtown. They'll add 20 to 25 patrols on the ground. Is that a solution for both the south and west sides as well? I know that there is a command post in, I believe it's Austin, with the Cook County Sheriff's Department. I was wondering if that is one of the many solutions that you would be looking into.
Every little bit helps. But it's not fundamental. Easy access to guns is a problem. Easy access to drugs is a problem. Enforcing gun and drug laws becomes a crisis. We want to stop it before it gets to that. I'd rather have 10 coaches rather than 10 police. They have some of the more youth and do it when they're organizing them. So we're in a crisis. Father Flager.
Yeah, I disagree. I think that, the presence of them, it's interesting to me that we're opening something in River North. But when the highest violence in the city is not in River North. I hear time and time again now, people over these last 6-7 months, well, we've got to do something about this violence because it's in our neighborhood now. Well, perhaps if we had done something about it when it was in our neighborhood, it would be in your neighborhood now. So whatever the reason, if now we can come together and care about the violence together, because as Reverend Jackson mentioned, the business community, corporate America, foundations, Magnificent Mile, you want to be a part of the solution, how many jobs do you offer? How many people? What's your second chance program like? Who are you willing to meet with in the community to take care of? Or what are you willing to open up a satellite in the community store? So I think every little bit helps. But again, police, whether it's county police, whether it's Chicago police, they come in after the fact. Presence is good and it's important. It makes some kind of impact. But it's mostly to come in after the fact. What are we doing to prevent it? What are we doing before we need to call 911? Because we've already lost the battle when we're having to call 911. We've got to be able to say, how do we keep that young person? I thought last week, and I'll just say this and be quiet. I thought last week when I saw on a Saturday night, there were 400 youth down on downtown by the Bean. And I wondered, what are we offering on Friday and Saturday nights for youth? Why can we not say that there's all these programs young people can go to? We have an enormous amount of talent that came out of Chicago. We start asking that talent to be a part of the problem solution. Come in and let's give them concerts. Let's have free concerts for young people. They wouldn't be downtown if they had if you offer a concert with somebody, they ain't going down to the Bean. They're going to go to the concert. So we've got to look at things like that and say, what are we doing to prevent it?
Do you feel more attention is being focused or allocated again to the downtown area, the central business district? Compared to other parts of the city?
I'll say my part of it. I don't speak for anybody else, but I think there was a tremendous emphasis. I think opening this office says something. That's a statement,
That's right. Yeah.
you know, and nothing against county sheriffs or Sheriff Dart. But when the office opened up about the violence is River North, and you look at the 15 communities where most of the violence happened, it's River North isn't in those 15. So what does that say?
No, don't hear him talk about the blessed community, it's not the blended community. We are destroying his dream. We have an obligation to speak up and speak out. We'll make this very, very clear. It's not enough, it seems to me, to point the blame in the solution. Gun flow and drug flow are federal issues. Federal issues. Durban has a role to play, a big role to play in this. He convened Mayor Lightfoot, Regular, and Governor, and we should have hearings. Let the people express themselves.
You know, when Reverend Jackson talks about wanting more coaches than police officers, Reverend Jeanette Wilson, our National Executive Director of Push Excel, along with nearly 40 college presidents were in Chicago yesterday at the Hyatt, 40 of them. Historically black colleges, predominantly white colleges, university presidents who are building facilities, going after dollars to bring more of our children from the south and west side of Chicago and across the country into these institutions. We know that the pipeline from kindergarten to high school must be broken, but we cannot arrest our way out of it. We cannot incarcerate our way out of it. So Reverend Jackson's point is one that we are taking very seriously as a community. We need more proactive rather than reactive resources because we're not going to arrest our way out of this. We're not going to incarcerate our way out of this. We do know that we can educate our way out of this. And that is a pathway to liberating and saving more lives.
Reverend Jackson.
Really, think about it more and more serialized bullets. Where you know where the bullet come from, where the gun comes from. Manufacturing is the source. Guns doesn't happen down grown trees. Manufacturing that sold in the urban markets. Serialized bullets. You know where the bullet came from. We were spread out in that way. I'm very concerned. We're making this just a local issue. It's national. It's everywhere. I tell you, the drugs exploiting the weakness of our culture.
Reverend Jackson, what are your thoughts about the smart guns that can be manufactured? And also, what are some other non-policing strategies that the federal government can help with? And also, can we get the name of the educator who spoke?
Her name is Dr. Tamisha Jackson. She is the dean at Kennedy King Community College. One of the things that Reverend Jackson has called for, in addition to the federal intervention, is the fact that there has to be a comprehensive approach. Violence is a public health issue. 3 forms of violence. It is the violence that is perpetrated by police and those acting while under color of law. It is the violence that our children are engaged in, shooting and harming each other. And then there's this anti-Semitic movement across the nation. So this is not a localized issue. He is calling for Chicago to be the epicenter for change by convening every stakeholder. Mr. Callahan said businesses have a problem with the violence because if the violence continues to increase, they cannot have restaurants open because who's going to go to a restaurant and get shot? They cannot have food stores open and shopping centers because who's going in the store and you're shooting outside, or in a shopping center where they have random acts of violence. And so the business community cannot sit behind the doors and say, y'all do something. There's no policing this. There has to be an investment. There are 9 endangered communities in this city. Endangered means they are under-resourced, underfunded, no investment. You drive through certain communities, Inglewood, Austin, Roseland, and several other communities around this city, 9 of them, they have the least employment record. They have the lowest graduation rates. They are not engaged. And when summer comes, there's nothing for them to do. Children have no playgrounds to play on. So the Park District has a role to play. The Forest Preserve County has a role to play. State legislators have a role to play. City council members, every one of their wards, they have to talk about what are we doing for the children? And we have to convene the young people so they have understanding that there's a future. Mothers have a role to play. It's the mothers, Purpose Over Pain, and mothers all across the city that are losing children. Fathers have a role to play. You have lawyers have a role to play. Educators, everybody has a role. We have a stake in the survival of our communities and the future for our children. And that's why he's calling for a citywide, statewide, countywide gathering of stakeholders. Because we don't have all of the solutions and you cannot police your way out. This is not it's becoming a war zone. We have to respond differently. Our children are not some products that we cast away. They're our future, and many of them are our present.
Question.
I got a question. The music industry, the mindset of these young people, the drill music. What do you say to people who are blaming this violence on the drill music that's being played over the radio waves? That's what any of them.
We glorify violence. I'm not concerned about the situation with Chris Rock, was the copycat. An amazing thing happened. Chris employed conflict resolution. If you pursue Will, that's been a problem. If you allow the sheriff to take him out, that's been a problem. He had a big event in Boston. He said, I'm not fighting unless I'm on the weekend. Here's the fuse issue. The point is that we must study conflict resolution in schools. We study how to be violent. We look at and it's not on one side of town. Kids in Charleston, they're all white. The mass murder is most all white. So it's not, we can call it justice. Justice comes out of a sense of awareness. Tell you that we cannot survive much longer. This country where I don't want my kids to go to a big concert. Free or not. It shouldn't take place. So none of them have a big concert, they have a big community around it. It shouldn't take place. About drugs and guns. Next, last.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Reverend.